Maybe the last minute of your life you want to... The goddamn savage! Annunciare le caccio. You like this? Oh, you like being food for the immortal?
What is happening, YouTube? You are listening to Immortal Coil, your oracle of whiskey mysticism. It is Wednesday, the 2nd of February, 2022, 6:47 p.m. West Coast Pacific Standard Time in Seattle, and it is time to get savage. Fuck that man. What is happening, my good people? It has been a minute and a half. I am pleased to announce my return to the broadcasting sphere. And towards that end, I would like you to lift high whatever it is you are imbibing and join me in the savage salute. Here's to us. What's like us? Not a goddamn thing. How to put hair on your grandma's tits. I want to remind you guys that the Savage Show is not for children. It is not for the weak of heart. It is not for those without honor. This broadcast will contain strong language, sensitive subject matter, images, and content intended for a mature 18-plus audience. Viewer discretion is advised. We are not legal counsel, nor do we dispense with the medical advice. However, we may touch on those topics as the show goes on. Should you have any questions of a legal or medical nature, please consult an accredited professional. This broadcast contains copywritten content, however, under the Fair Use Act, Section 504C2, Title 17 of the U.S. Code. This content is presented for the purposes of education and entertainment through the use of parody, satire, critique, analysis, and/or social commentary by means of subjective opinion. You will hear some fuck words, so put the dear ones to bed and join me, my savage friends. Immortal Coil, just a humble immortal from a savage land. Been away for a while. It's been a minute. Joining us, we have the ever faithful Tommy and the Guinea Pig Collective, the hardest working moderator. This guy is in every stream that I can think of, at least every stream that matters. We're starting this thing called the United Underground. You may have caught a broadcast or two under that banner. We got shows all week, and you are welcome to join all of them. So whether you are with us live or on the replay, we salute you. And let's go ahead and get going. We got all these little footprints from the Tommy and the Guinea Pig Collective. Good to see you guys. Good to see you guys. It has been a little while. I thought I'd start it off with something a little bit more lighthearted. something to make you chuckle because it's been a king hell of a fucking week. I cannot overemphasize that point. This is from my Twitter account. If you are so inclined, you can join me on Twitter. You can find me at underscore immortal, at immortal underscore coil. This is something I found that was not of my own creation, but I wish I would have thought of this. This is kind of like one of those YouTube shorts that are meant to compete with TikTok, as it were, the tiki-taki. I'm not so much into tiki-taki, but I can get down on some fuckery. Some fuckery. As any member of any DM that I'm a part of will attest to. This is something that I thought was kind of silly. This is somebody who mashed up Jurassic Park with Seinfeld. As you know, the actor who played Newman also was in Jurassic Park, and for some reason that I cannot fathom, and I can't believe I didn't think of this myself, this thing has taken on a life of its own. Check this out.
Is that clock right?
Yeah, 9 o'clock.
I was supposed to pick up Newman at the zoo 12 hours ago.
My glasses. Oh, nice boy. Oh, nice boy. Nice, boy. Thought you were one of your big brothers. You're not so bad. You're not so bad. What do you want? What do you want? You want food? Look at me. I just fell down a hill. I'm soaking wet. I don't have any food. I have no food on me. I have nothing on me. Come on. Play pets? Play pets? Play pets? Look, stick. You stick? Look, stick. Stick, stupid. That's a stick, boy. Look at this. Yes. You like your stick? No wonder you're extinct. I'm gonna run you over when I come back down.
Fucking laugh track on that gets me every single time. This was Wayne Knight, of course, from Seinfeld fame. He played Newman. He plays an incredibly good asshole. You know, he's like one of those guys. He just has one of those faces and one of those like when he gets killed by a dinosaur, it's funny because you could just see Newman going out and doing something like that. I recently had occasion because I was sick for a week or two there to sit down and just watch a bunch of Seinfeld and just a bunch of weird stuff like that from the 90s that I hadn't gotten into. And this is something that I was so hyper familiar with that I kind of ignored it because it's like listening to fucking Give It Away Now by the Red Hot Chili Peppers or Under the Bridge or something where you've just heard it 900,000 times. Or like Sweet Emotion. It's just like there in the background and you know it's always going to be there. But then when you actually kind of like start grooving to it, you're like, oh yeah, I guess that isn't all right. All right thing. That's from the Twatterverse. Yes. I was really impressed by that. I retweeted it myself. I put "You're a fuck Newman" because he like I said, the perfect sniveling, sniveling idiot, the perfect idiot. Which is one of those things like you either got guys who are just like they know that they're good at playing dorks, so they're always going to act like a dork, or you got a guy like Jason Alexander or Walter Koenig, where they know that they were portrayed as dorks on TV, so they have to overcompensate in interviews and use like every multisyllabic word in their fucking syllabus. We got Bear Nerd Fun joining us in the chat. What is up, my good friend? Another United Underground member. We got all kinds of good shit for you tonight. We got a killer program. I thought I'd try to structure this so that we will have a little bit of fun. Of course, we're going to talk about Bobby Fett and how his show got taken over by everybody outside of his show and my thoughts on that. It's been 3 weeks since I broadcasted, so I will briefly go over episode 3, and then episode 4, and then talk about 5 and 6, which is really where the fucking money is, isn't it? That's where all the Hollywood fucking parasites are moving into, and then some thoughts on how that might bode for our beloved Star Wars franchise. But before we get into that, I thought that it would be rather amusing to look at this article from Screen Rant. Screen Rant, the sometimes okay rag, the mostly kind of bullshit rag from my experience. And it's one of those things, it's hit and miss. It is hit and miss. It's it really depends on who wrote the shit and when they did it and what their fucking affiliation is. Here we have by Steve Wildsmith. Wildsmith. That sounds like I don't know, like a rejected Bill and Ted band name. It's not the Wild Stallions, it's Wildsmith. There we go. That's the beer. That is a good beer. And then I can't seem to get rid of this fucking banner ad. That's another reason why the Screen Rant is a fucking bullshit rag. Because of stuff like that. If there's like endless pop-ups and you can't even look at anything, and then but we got Bill Murray there. So the December 27th, 2021, this shows you how long ago I fucking looked at this and was storing it for a week where I wasn't so focused on idiocy, just sheer idiocy, where the socially engineered media professionally designed to keep you from achieving your own maximum potential in its bullshit news cycle. This one's kind of amusing. This is called 10 Older Movies That Were Set in 2022 and How They Imagine the Future. And then, of course, this is the second headline. From climate crises to doomsday scenarios, a number of older films set in 2022, like Geostorm, painted pictures of the future that were grim. Okay. Now, believe me, I'm not adverse to dystopian visions of the future. I am an old X-Men fan. 2029 is one of those years that we're going to face soon, that we're going to live through, but it was a cornerstone in sci-fi. I don't know why. Maybe it was just the numerology of the thing. 4 + 9 is 13. 13 is an unlucky number historically. But let's see what this article has to say. It says reality, whatever that is, seldom aligns with fiction, and such is the case for films of the past set in 2022. From low-budget cringe fests like The Dark Side of the Moon to big-budget sci-fi spectacles like Geostorm, films set in 2022 are often desolate, dangerous places. 2022 approaches for real, and again, this was written last year, so we are actually currently living in 2022. Some of the portents predicted in such movies are harbingers that it would be wise to heed. Others, however, drift too far into the fantastical to truly be given consideration as an accurate depiction of what the year might actually have in store. Soylent Green, 1973. Who remembers Soylent Green? That was a tasty little treat. I often wonder what Soylent actually was supposed to taste like. Is it like a reconstituted paste? Is it like a gelatinous bio batter? Boy, that sounds dirty, doesn't it? It's like you gave your loved one your gelatinous bio batter. Yeah. Gen Xers and fans of Saturday Night Live likely remember one thing about this film: the late Phil Hartman's impression of star Charlton Heston. Charlton from My Cold Dead Hands. Heston. The don't take my fucking guns guy. And the lampooning of the film's trailer, which spoiled the premise. Still, there are elements of the plot of this classic sci-fi movie that isn't too far off the mark. The world of Soylent Green, for example, is facing a climate crisis. Oh boy, I already can sense the political inclinations of Mr. Wildsmith. The planet is overpopulated, the article continues, and supply chain issues plague the delivery of food. That's where the similarities end, however, unless there's a secret plan afoot in the coming year to turn an abundant problem into a source of sustenance. I don't know, I was reading about laboratory meats where countries like China with huge populations, India, are going to look to lab-grown proteins that can disguise itself as chicken meat or cow meat or pig meat in the near future. I don't know how I'd feel about that. I guess it's not a terrible crime. I guess it depends on where the proteins are being sourced from, and how they taste. The Dark Side of the Moon, 1990. This is one I actually have not seen. Oh, and that's why, even as a direct-to-video release, The Dark Side of the Moon is a forgettable one, but its version of 2022 is rather amusing. Nuclear-armed satellites are apparently a thing, as is the disappearance of the Space Shuttle Discovery. Lost in the Bermuda Triangle, of all places. As it turns out, the coordinates for the Earthbound Triangle correspond with the far side of the moon, where a maintenance ship encounters the Discovery and finds the devil, inhabiting one of the dead bodies aboard it. That sounds like a Doctor Who. Of course, Discovery has that taste of taint in the mouth of Star Trek fans. I actually recently binge watched quite a bit of Star Trek, like old Star Trek, like TNG and Voyager, and a couple episodes of TOS. And, like the more I do that and the more I read about the season 2 of Picard and all that kind of stuff. And it's funny because I went on to Memory Alpha, which is like Wikipedia for Star Trek, right? Memory Alpha is laid out in sections, and you can go series by series. And there's this whole section about Discovery and Enterprise and all that kind of stuff. Enterprise, when it was on, I did not like it. But compared to Kurtzman Trek, Akiva Goldsman Trek, fucking Enterprise might as well be Shakespeare. At least it was original, or tried to be original. That whole augment virus thing was bullshit. We knew that. But at least it stuck to canon and lore and wasn't trying to 25% reinvent canon and lore. It's further proof, the article continues, that Hollywood writers were certain we'd be further along in our quest to explore the stars. But beyond that, there's little to indicate that the 2022 of The Dark Side of the Moon is worth any viewer's time. If any of you guys have seen that movie, let me know. let me know. Alien Intruder, 1993. Lando fucking Colt 45 right there. This is before we knew that Lando fucked robots. Although if they invented a fuckable robot, you know everybody would be fucking robots. But geez, not like L337. There is nothing sexy about L337. She's kind of like that G4 bitch, isn't she? Where she just screams all the time. And it's like the only reason why you might engage in a sexual encounter with somebody like that is to shut them the fuck up. Here, put this in your mouth. Please put something in your mouth. If you don't like what I have, I'm sure there's a clam down the road. Alien Intruder, 1993. Thanks to his role as Lando Calrissian in the Star Wars franchise, Billy D. Williams was still a respectable star in 1993, but even he couldn't save this cringe-worthy sci-fi film set in 2022. There's not much to the plot. Convicts are set on an interstellar rescue mission and end up turning on one another thanks to a virtual reality vixen. But Williams tries his best to carry it as the ship's captain. Can you imagine that? You're just like handed shit scripts because the only thing that people remember you from is like fucking over Han Solo. Is that one of the Baldwins and he's holding like a fucking M4 and he's got like a helium tank strapped to his back? It's probably supposed to be like a flamethrower or something, and you can't even see the bottom of this woman's head, because she appears to be going for the belt with teeth, perhaps. The future imagined in Alien Intruder is one which humans are frequent travelers to deep space and can live out sexual fantasies in virtual reality. Is this a hollow dick thing? But the plot that incorporates these elements is so bad, it's difficult to tell whether they're truly predictive narrative devices or a screenwriter's sci-fi fantasy. Oh yeah, because screenwriters never insert themselves into their own movies, right? Or comic books or visual media. I am not Firestar. Critics at the time lambasted the film, which hasn't aged any better, as entertainment or a portent of things to come. Time Runner, 1993. This is one I actually remember. Billy D. Williams isn't the only Star Wars actor to land a leading role in a 1993 sci-fi film set in 2022. In one of his less than iconic roles, and there are quite a few of them, Mark Hamill stars as Michael Rayner, a military captain who disappears into the past via a mysterious wormhole that opens shortly after aliens attack his space station. The film borrows heavily from the Terminator franchise, but the biggest 2022 moments again showcase a future that has yet to come to pass. Humans manning interstellar military outposts and traveling to space as nonchalantly as flying overseas. They're trying, though, aren't they? Fucking Jeff Bezos. China's even trying to get into the game where space tourism is a thing, where you can sail into the void. And hopefully expand your horizons and not just pick your nose the entire time. While commercial space flight has indeed come to pass, the 2022 of reality has a ways to go before it catches up with the fictional setting of Time Runner. No Escape, 1994. Of all the older movies set in 2022, No Escape has the flashiest pedigree, starring Ray Liotta, Ernie Hudson, Lance Henriksen, and directed by Martin Campbell, who would go on to helm The Mask of Zorro and the superior Bond entries GoldenEye and Casino Royale. The story of a penal colony that may or may not have inspired the Hunger Games No Escape imagines a future in which the for-profit prison system has been supercharged. Absalom, an island central to the story, is a place where prisoners have divided into factions and have inexplicably untamed weapons like a rocket launcher. Satellites and patrol boats monitor the inmates, and while viewers don't get much of a glimpse at the rest of the outside world, the 2022 of No Escape seems like a place where a great deal of time and effort has gone into a plot device that better serves a fictional narrative than reality. I still haven't heard any movies where crazy orange presidents are trying to squash screaming memes. I guess we'll find out. Death Wave, 2009. In imagining 2022, filmmakers seem to draw from two wells: political and or social dystopia or climate crisis. Death Wave, a Thai film, is part of the latter camp, as a desperate scientist tries to warn the government of Thailand that an impending typhoon means certain Thai doom. Of all the movies set in 2022, Death Wave may be the most realistic. Deadly typhoons continue to ravage the Pacific Rim, and the Pacific Island nations stand to suffer the most from climate change. While the special effects may not measure up to Hollywood standards, the message at the heart of the film isn't outside the realm of possibilities for what the future may hold. I'm thinking this author is a Alec Baldwin fan. I meant to say Al Gore, but same guy, right? The Purge, 2013. Set 8 years after an economic collapse. The 2022 of The Purge imagines the Purge. Like, I just want to say that like fucking David Attenborough or something. The Purge. Imagines an America where crime is kept to an unimaginable minimum thanks to a 12-hour period every year. Oh, I've heard of this. In which every crime is legal. A wildly successful flick that made 30 times its budget, The Purge, spawned a franchise full of colorful characters, but sparked a number of existential questions about what the future might look like. For one, it operates on the assumption that criminals are content to wait for once-a-year event to satiate their urges. For another, it imagines that average suburbanites. This article is trying to be smarter than it actually is. Suburbanites likely harbor hidden psychopathic tendencies that are given free rein during the Purge. Whether or not either presumption is true makes for a fascinating debate, especially set against the widening divide in the current political climate. I wonder which side of the fence this author sits on. Geostorm 2017. Satellites sent into orbit helps stabilize the climate go haywire. And it's up to Gerard Butler to save the planet in this big screen disaster movie. While climate change has certainly caused bigger and more catastrophic natural disasters in recent years, the technology to control those is still confined to the minds of scientists and Hollywood screenwriters. I don't know about that one. Tinfoil hat guy in me thinks that it's possible to direct hurricanes and shit like that in this day and age. It's a lofty goal, DARPA and all that fucking shit. It's a lofty goal to control such disasters with technology that can neutralize a typhoon, or on the flip side of that coin, superheat a city to the point that tornadoes of fire ravage the urban landscape. And given the debate around climate change, it would be an ideal deus ex machina to take care of current climate woes. When governments can't agree on solutions to the problem, however, it's unlikely 2022 will see them agree to a joint satellite program that controls the weather. Okay, I'm very convinced that this guy has an axe to grind, and just make sure when you're done with your beer that you crush it on your forehead and then place it in the recycle receptacle. Safer at Home 2021. Doesn't this look diverse? It was just a matter of time before an industrious filmmaker turned COVID-19 into a post-apocalyptic film. Safer at Home imagines a United States in late 2022 where COVID has mutated so often that 31 million Americans have died and some cities are placed under martial law. In this instance, it's LA. But while various strains of COVID are concerning, it'll take a radically mutated variant to get the country into a similar state by the end of the new year. Given that the film ends as the United Kingdom ceases to exist as a country, it's difficult to imagine 2022 taking as drastic a turn as the minds of Safer at Home developed in the film's plot. So this is the fall of the United Kingdom. So we got this gay couple. We've got this nice looking Asian girl. We got the white people who are probably going to die first. And then this nice mixed race couple. So we can tell that they're going to have to band together after the white people die, because that's just how movies are now. The Tomorrow War 2021. This is another one I haven't heard of. There's a soldier fighting a vagina-faced alien. To be fair, the bulk of Tomorrow War is set in the year 2051, when soldiers from the future traveled back in time to recruit volunteers for a campaign against aliens on the verge of a victory that means humanity's extinction. If there's one nugget that can be gleaned from the 2022 scenes, however, it's that fans of Scotland and Brazil have an exciting World Cup championship game to watch. Of course, the real World Cup won't wrap until December 22, but a creative license for the sake of sci-fi drama can be overlooked. Hopefully, the sequel, which was announced shortly after the Chris Pratt vehicle debuted on Amazon Prime video, gives viewers a closer look at whatever contemporary setting serves as the backdrop, whether it's 2022 or some future year. About the author, Steve Wildsmith is a veteran entertainment journalist with almost 30 years of experience in the professional newsrooms across Tennessee and South Carolina. His world changed in the summer of '77 when his father took him to see Star Wars, and now he's a prick who writes for Screen Rant. All right. Get that shit off my screen. Tommy and the Guinea Pig Collective saying nom nom nom. Soylent Green was supposed to taste like biscuits. Biscuits, like Australian toaster biscuits, or like Pillsbury biscuits. Or like Kiss My Biscuits. I don't know. Fake meats are becoming a norm now in the grocery stores. It's the new norm now. Of course, they would make a film about it. Yeah. And that's the thing about engineered news, is that it's all about buzzwords and hashtags. What they are attempting to do is repeat a phrase often enough that it will probably start to appear on your smartphones. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. If you're having a conversation with somebody, or their phone starts playing something, or they're talking about something that they read on their phone, invariably, you'll get a mention of it in your feed as well. Which is funny, because old Google searches will turn up that way too. My feed was very narrowly confined to a couple of topics that I'm personally interested in. Some of those topics make the show, and some of them are just kind of for the shitter, as it were. But I noticed that when I go and I hang out with my roommate or my girlfriend or friends or coworkers, that some of their shit will start to try to infiltrate my brain. And it's one of those things, if you do not know how the system works, if you do not know about algorithms and how they would like for you to please think, it might seem all random. It might be one of those things where you believe in the relevance of the news articles that you are faced with, forced to square off with, is a more accurate description. But square off with it you shall. There's also something that I've noticed in the news feeds, and it's one of those things where if you get a story that you are considering to be bullshit and you right click on them in an effort to minimize their frequency in your feed, a lot of times it will give you an option to dislike a person or some character that's in the thing. It'll give you an option to dislike the entire website that it came from, or it will give you something like dislike sci-fi. Don't show me stories about sci-fi, to paint a broad brush. And it could be anything really. It could be like space travel or, nutrition or science or archaeology or whatever ology you're into, which is very nefarious because it doesn't really give you a way to drill down and get rid of the specific annoyance. It's not that I dislike sci-fi, but I don't want to read stories about L337, for instance. But it's like, don't show stories from Screen Rant. Don't show Star Wars stories. Don't show sci-fi stories. Where's my L337 option? Oh, I don't have one. Why is that? Oh, because you don't want for me to. Okay, I'm glad that we got that sorted out. Again, I don't want to sit around and just bemoan things. I want things to be light, to be funny. Towards that end, I'm going to do something that the algorithm will thank me for. The most successful video on my channel is a comedy sketch. There's a reaction that's my second biggest video, but my top video is this thing that I clipped a Dana Carvey routine where he's pretending to be Paul McCartney talking to John Lennon in heaven. And since John Lennon's been dead since 1980, he has no idea what's been going on Earth in the past 40 years. So Paul is having to explain how the world is now to John, and that is far and wide my most successful video. And it's one of those things, like if I just want to be a cheesy chap and do videos like that the rest of my life, that I could have a lovely YouTube career, but I would never get to talk about the things that are important to me. But because of the kind of things that have been going on these past couple weeks, I do need a laugh. And I thought that reacting to a comedy video would be a good way to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on my brand new expensive camera. Control E. Yes, there we go. Rocking the new Welcome to the Rebellion shirt, courtesy of Drunk 3PO. It's a nice, comfy shirt. It's very soft. It's not like heavy duty cotton, but it will stand up to regular every day. I wouldn't go and take this to the construction site though. This is going to be it's going to be an at-home shirt or on the camera shirt or something along those lines. So this is a routine by Bert Kreischer called The Machine. I actually came across this initially from a coworker who, a former coworker of mine, who I consider a prat. He's not a good guy to work with. He's very knowledgeable, but petty, you know. So we had this thing going on where we're kind of fighting over the job site radio because he would like to listen to like samba and bachata and merengue and things like that. And I wanted to listen to like classic rock and, things like that, things that I was interested in. And he was trying to barter an agreement with me where, well, why don't you choose the music in the car? So when we're driving to job sites or whatever, you can listen to whatever you want. And then when we're at the job site, I'll listen to whatever I want. And I'm like, not so fast, because we're driving maybe a maximum of an hour, 2 hours a day. And we're on a job site for 6 to 8 hours a day. That's no es bueno, senor. So we butted heads. But one of the things that I tried to suggest to him was like, maybe we can listen to comedy at work instead of fucking shake your booty salsa music. And he's like, all right. So I played him some Ron White, and then he came up with this guy, The Machine. And I took a look at The Machine, and I'm like, this looks like some fucking elder frat boy piece of shit douchebag. And he is, in a way, but the story is funny. The story is actually funny. So we're going to sit back, listen to some comedy. I'm going to play The Machine. Actually, let me make sure that we're set up for that properly. Because sometimes the audio is not on. All right. The Machine. Bert Kreischer.
When I was 22, I got involved with the Russian mafia. Here's how it happened.
Let's see if I can clean up that interference.
Very good student. I was there like 7 years. I was there in most of the 90s. I was in college longer than grunge music was around.
I believe that. Look at that beer belly. Dad bod.
So,
shameless.
This is how
fearless.
bad of a student I was. One time, I signed up for a Russian class thinking it was Spanish. And it took 3 classes before I realized, I don't think this is Spanish. So I got up to leave. The teacher, who was hot, he definitely worked out. I'm kidding. It was a girl. It was a girl. And she was hot. She still is hot. She stopped me. She goes, don't go anywhere. I need 14 kids to teach this class. You're the 14th. I need to teach this class in order to get my master's. So if you sit back down, you don't have to do anything all semester, and I'll just give you a C. I was like, Strasvutia, bitches, I'm back. So I took Russian 1, 2, 3, and 4, never learned a word.
You just
Think
said
about what I'm saying. I took 2 years of a language, took 4 semesters of my college career, 4 semesters. Russian 4 was taught in Russian. Do you have any idea what it's like to go to a class and sit there like an immigrant at the DMV all day? Like, the end of Russian 4, same teacher pulls me aside. She's like, we're taking a trip to Russia. If you go, you'll get a minor. I was like, okay, hold on. I can't really speak, read, write, or understand the language, right? She's like, I'm fucking well aware of that. You got to remember, I was taking tests in a language with which I was unfamiliar with their alphabet. Do you have any idea what it's like to take a test and make up hieroglyphics? And the answer is star, circle, hashtag shoe. She goes, it doesn't matter. We need kids to make this trip happen. And if you go with all the classes you've taken and the ones you will take, dude, you will get a minor. And I was like, that's all you had to say. Let's go to Russia and fuck some minors. It was different minor, obviously. Learned that the hard way. So
Those
we went
guys
to
mining
Russia
uranium.
in 1995. This is when the mob ran everything. And they told us that our very first night. They sat the whole class down. They're like, listen, we have paid off the mafia to keep you safe. In exchange for our money, they give us 2 young gangsters. I'm in the room like, this trip just got fucking awesome. The word for gangster in Russian is banditi. They go, these banditi are going to live with us. They're going to walk you to class. They're going to walk you back from class. They're going to take you on field trips, walk you back from field trips. Do not speak to them. They're in the mafia. Do not look at them. Do not engage them. Do not interact with them. I was like, well, they're going to be my best fucking friends. So the first night I grabbed a bottle of vodka and a 6-pack of Baltica, which is our local beer, and I planned a sentence. I was going to say, Strasvutia, меня зовут Bert, очень приятно. Я работаю кошка. Does anyone speak Russian in here? I love that someone says no. No. I did a head count earlier. It doesn't look like it. I'll tell you what the sentence says. It's a badass sentence. I worked all day on it. Hello, my name's Bert. It's very nice to meet you. I work pussy. Kind of. It really means I work with cats. I didn't know the fucking language. What do you expect? It doesn't matter because the second the door opens and I'm face to face with a real Russian gangster with the wife beater and the tattoos with the track pants and the cigarette. And he just stares me up and down. A frat boy from Florida State. I was wearing a fanny pack.
I believe that.
He just looks at me and goes, "Что?" I fucking panicked. And everything I had planned on saying flooded out of my head. And all I said to him in Russian in his doorway was, "I am the machine." And he started laughing. He goes, "What did you say?" I was like, "I'm the machine." He grabs me and he goes, "Come in and tell my friends." Brings me in a room full of 9 Russian gangsters drinking and smoking and just goes, "Stop." Tell them what you said. Now I'm like, fuck it. I'm the machine. They looked at each other, looked at me, and they're like, fuck it. He's the machine. And I became the machine. And these guys loved me. Yes.
The machine.
You got to realize, though, the reason they loved me is I went shot for shot with them that night, all night long, until like 4 a.m. But all I knew how to say in their language was, "I'm the machine." And I fuck cats.
Kind of machine are you?
So we did everything together. We like the guy that answered the door, his name was Igor. He was like my best friend. We did everything together. We ran a pool hall scam. We stole a boat. It was literally the best summer of my life. And then one day, the whole class is taking a trip to Moscow. It's an overnight train trip. And I say to Igor, I go, "This is going to be a blast. We got to be in the same cabin." And he goes, "I can't go." I said, "Why not?" And he goes, "Different mafia runs train, different mafia runs Moscow." I said, "Well, hold on. What's that mean for me?" And he goes, "Don't worry. I set up banditi. I tell them about you. They'll take care of you." Sure enough, we get to the train station, and he introduces me to my 2 new gangsters, Igor and Igor. And he says to me, he goes, "Guys, this is the machine. If you give the machine vodka, you'll have a great time." The big ear-y 2 Igors looks like a kid on Christmas. He's like, "Oh, I can't wait to play with a machine." He grabs me and he goes, "The machine doesn't sit in coach. The machine sits in first class with us." I'm like, "That's what I'm fucking talking about." We go to first class and it is pimped out with booze, food, and here's the real gangster part. Second the train takes off out of the station, everyone that works on the train comes in to pay their respects. The conductor walked in, rips off the stars and stripes to his shirt, places them on my lap, and goes, "This is a present for the machine." It would be an honor to do a shot of vodka with the machine. I'm 22 years old thinking, these machine stories might have gotten out of control.
You think?
We drink all the booze in an hour, and Big Igor stands up and he goes, "Machine, we go to the bar cart to get more vodka." I'm like, fuck it. I'm in the mob. I'll do whatever the fuck I want. We roll into the bar cart like a big dick in a locker room. Just, not that I've ever been that guy, but I've seen it. Just smack.
Water must have been cold.
You know the look where everyone looks like, "Oh, shit. Okay. Whoa, someone's here. Okay, all right." Igor looks at me, and in Russian, he says, "Machine, go behind the bar and grab bread." In Russian. And I understood him. For a second, I'm like, I'm fucking learning.
It's an immersive experience.
I'm learning the language my way, not through flashcards and textbooks, but by joining the mafia. I get behind the bar, I'm like, Igor, I know what you said. He's like, go for your machine.
Go get the fucking bread.
Cheese. And I was like, Sir, cheese, I got it. Give me another one. And he's like, grab vodka. I was like, I already know that one. Give me another one. He's like, grab the money. I'm like, huh? He goes, grab the fucking money. And I realized at that instant, we're robbing the bar cart.
It's the fucking mafia.
And I'm the one doing it, hooked on phonics style. I grab the money, walk out. Two of my classmates see me, and they're like, you're in so much trouble. Go back to our first class cabin, and within 5 minutes,
Whatever doofus.
the head chaperone of this train trip, not the whole trip, just this train trip. She was an English teacher who did not speak Russian, who hated me before I robbed the train. She comes over to our first class cabin and swings the door open with that like liberal arts confidence, just
SJW. Proto SJW.
this shit is over. You're done. You're done. Stand up right now. You stand up. How you're done. Stand up. And Big Igor looks at me confused, then smiles, takes a big sip of vodka, spits it in her eyes, and goes, no one talks to the machine like that.
That's right.
Shuts the door in her face and goes, fuck that bitch. This is Russia.
This is Russia. Yes.
Don't worry, machine. When it gets dark, we have good time. Like, what the fuck are we doing when it gets dark? Reaches in his pocket, pulls out a ring of keys, and he goes, we're robbing the whole fucking train.
You gonna tell him no?
I'm a good person. I don't cheat. This is why, let me tell you, I don't cheat on my wife. I don't cheat on my wife because one morning, our whole family was in bed. The dogs, the cats, the girls, my wife, and we were just giggling, and it was pure. It was perfect. And I thought to myself, I don't ever want to screw this up. This is the most important thing. This is what life's about. And they got up to make chocolate chip pancakes. And I laid in bed and I said, I will never cheat on my wife. I had a conversation with myself. I said, if I ever get into a situation where a hot girl's flirting with me, or I think she's flirting with me, and it seems like it could go further, I'm just going to cock block myself. I'm just going to look her in the face in front of everyone and go, I don't cheat on my wife. Now, I may be wrong. She may not be hitting on me. She may throw a drink in my face, slap me, or I may be right. None of that matters to me. What matters to me is that I don't cheat on my wife because I've already had that conversation. Here's the problem. I never had that conversation about robbing trains.
This guy has a future
So
as
when
a stupid
presented the
dad on
opportunity, I
TV.
thought I'd be like, not me. I'm going to go back and work on my verbs. But apparently, when presented the opportunity, I'm the guy that's like, fuck it, let's start with my class.
You gonna
So
tell
we
the mob
robbed
no?
them first, while they slept, if that makes it better, and then we robbed the whole train. And if there's any consolation, we robbed me too. My bag was with them. And then we drank all night long, like literally until 6 in the morning. Top 5 drunkest I've ever been without throwing up in my entire life. We pull into Moscow at 6 a.m. I'm pissed drunk. You ever been so drunk you're like, I know I got to piss, but I can't find my dick. Train stops, sun's up, I'm hammered, door opens, same teacher, not mad. Curious, right? She looks me in the eyes, smiling, and goes, I want to be the one to tell you they've alerted the police. And I look out, and on the platform, my whole class is standing there with a cop, talking. They're upset. They've been robbed. I get it. Apparently, they'd never heard snitches get stitches.
In Russian.
Big Igor sees this, and it's completely unfazed. He's like, don't worry. I talked to police for both of us. I was like, oh, thank God. He cracks a bottle of vodka. I'm like, no, I wouldn't bring that out to an officer, maybe. Lights a cigarette, walks out to the cop, who's taking a statement. The cop is taking a statement. Igor walks up behind him, grabs him by the arm, spins him around, and goes, fuck you! We fuck you in the mouth! We fuck you in the ass! I'm like, stop with the fucking we shit! Now the cop is just staring at me, and I hear him bark out, "Pardon, good day," which I don't even know what that means, but it doesn't sound like, you're okay, stay there. It is a come to Jesus moment where you know you fucked up. All I thought as I walked to the cop, who's standing in front of the class I just robbed. Next to the gangster I robbed them with. My only thought was, this isn't how I plan on spending my second junior year. In the gulag taking hot dicks to the throat. I get 5 steps from the cop, who looks impatient as shit. He takes 2 big-ass steps, grabs me by the arm, spins me away from my class, away from Igor, pulls me right into his face, and he goes, "So, I understand you're the machine." Nice.
Reputation precedes me.
Tonight, you party with us. I was like, what? He's like, tonight, you party with us, yes? And I looked at him, and I was like, wait, I'm not in trouble? And he gets so close to me, I can smell his morning cigarette, and he goes, no. Fuck that bitch. This is Russia.
This is Russia. Oh, the fucking machine. I forgot how much I actually liked that. Yeah, I mean, that guy is kind of a D-bag, but he told a good story. I don't know that I'd want to see his whole stand-up special, but he'd probably be pretty good to party with. So, all right. In other news. Ooh, we joined by Random Brad. He is fucking digging that, rolling on the floor laughing. Right on, the thunder from down under. My brother from another mother. Random Brad has a pretty interesting Instagram page. If you can track him down, he has like this. He's like the guru of metal, and I saw this post actually. I'll start it up again. I have this guy back here, the skull guy, wearing shades next to my 3% thing. He had something kind of like that on his Instagram, but it was like a goat's head or a ram's head or something. I was like, I got one of those too. All right. Speaking of Russian bots, go ahead, you guys, kill that motherfucker. All right. A lot of the funniness is over. We're going to move on to the big ticket item of the night, which it just so happens that my show is on Wednesdays and the Book of Boba Fett premieres on Wednesdays. I've been out for a couple weeks, so we're going to touch on the bullshit episode, and then we're going to get into the good episodes, which are the last 2, 5 and 6. So 4, I'm going to put up a JPEG, which is my favorite one. It's Vader, of course, scorning Boba Fett. There's a finger of scorn. We got IG-88 in the background. We know if you read the Vader comics that Vader wasted IG-88, and that Boba Fett, occasionally he thinks he could go toe-to-toe with the Sith Lord, but he usually invariably ends up smarter than that. We're going to touch briefly on what is that, 6.5, episode 4, which I was not impressed with. Episode 4, so you guys remember, that's the one where Ming-Na Wen, Fennec Shand, and of course this is happening during bubble bath time. Boba Fett's remembering when he had her put back together. Mando famously shot her in the gut, so he takes her to a cyber mod guy who I don't know, he kind of looked like I don't know. He was a black dude. He had like the Borg arm to help him, fix her. And these are the guys that ended up being Power Rangers, and they're like Reavers. They love their cyber augmentations, so they wear them proudly. But Boba Fett's like walking in, he's like, she's going to die. I should have Random Brad come in and voice Tamura Morrison's character. She's going to die, right? Now it's funny because you know, she gets her guts ripped out. I'm not sure if is she still fully functional, you know, or did they give her like a robo pussy, something like that? Like you stick it in and it does it for you, you know? I'm not sure how that works. Could you imagine going into like a cyber augmenter and you're like, yeah, you know, I noticed that you guys, you know, replace organic parts with machinery. Can you attach or can you swap out? Could you install like a reciprocating saw in my pants for me? You know, you could switch out the blades. But see, the only thing that I would think would be difficult about that would be nerve sensations. But supposedly this is advanced cybernetics, so maybe they could I don't know, make it feel even better. I don't know. I don't know. And it's funny, you know, like he has her operated on and she wakes up and she's like, and he's like, it's all right. I had you rebuilt. You know, and she's like, who are you? And this is what's fucked up, okay? Because Boba Fett was a high profile son of a bitch bounty hunter. And he worked for Sith Lords and gangsters and shit like that. So in the bounty hunter guilds or whatever the fuck they are, he should be legendary. You know, like Mando, people know who he is. And they even knew who he was before he pulled that move with Grogu. Fucking Boba Fett should be legendary. He should be like Cad Bane kind of legendary. Oh, and we'll get to Cad Bane. Yes, we will. Yes, we will. Random Brad says he's going to be setting up the camera and mic sometime this year. I would love that, dude. You fucking name the time and place. I will be there listening, or I will figure out some way to play it at work while I'm rebuilding houses. But I'd like you to buy like a Boba Fett helmet and just make fun of this motherfucker. Because Boba Fett, let's not mince words here. Boba Fett is getting showed up in his own show. His show is being taken over by everybody else. And I think it's weird that they didn't just create a show called Mandalorians, because that way they could still do what they're basically doing without having to share screen time as they're doing. And I'll have thoughts about this later, you know. So yeah, she doesn't know who Boba Fett is. She doesn't recognize his name, which is strange. And she's kind of like, so I guess I owe you now, you know. And she has that like, so do I gotta, how long do I have to suck your dick kind of thing? And he's like, none of that will be necessary. I want you to go and help me recapture my fire spray ship. Now, when I first heard that, I was so fucking mad. But then I kind of thought about how that turn of phrase was scripted. Because it's true, Boba Fett and Jango Fett before him flew a fire spray class ship. So that's kind of like, instead of saying the USS Enterprise, if you can help me get back my Constitution class starship, right? Or my Galaxy class starship. I understand that Disney is probably not going to allow the utterance of the word Slave One, despite it having an honorable origin within the lore. Now, Slave One has been on packaging for decades. Slave One. And it came from the fact that Jango Fett was a former slave. So he cuts off his bonds, he kills his slavers, and then his ship is the Slave One. that makes fucking sense. And honestly, if Disney would take time to explain that to SJWs, they might even unfuck themselves and get on board with that name. Makes me mad. I need a drink. But they won't do that because that's anathema to family entertainment, which I don't understand, because if you think about it, something like Snow White or Cinderella, the dwarves are fucking slaves. You're gonna send all these little people under a mountain to mine gems? Fuck out of here. Cinderella, she can't fucking move 2 feet in her house. You know, the only person who has it worse than Cinderella is probably Harry Potter, but he's not Disney. So they're picking their moments to be uncomfortable about, and it's all about social engineering. It's about how can we position this so that we look morally superior? It's morally superior, if you ask the Melvins, right? Then it's funny. So there's a lot of like, wink, wink kind of Easter eggs in this episode. One of these is that Boba Fett, after the Tusken Raiders were slaughtered, not by a lightsaber this time, but yes, the women, yes, the children. He gets on a bantha and he just fucking rides away. And there is this thing in lore where banthas are loyal to their riders. So it's kind of like having a gigantic German shepherd where it loves you, but it will chew up everybody else, you know. But as he was saying goodbye to this bantha, I couldn't help but think of Appa from Avatar, The Last Airbender, which is a great show. A show which David Filoni, that's how George Lucas discovered him. He picked him right out of that fucking show. And actually a lot of like the sound director, the vocal coach or whatever, however you conjugate that, Andrea Romano, they pulled her out of that show too. And she's been working on Clone Wars and Rebels and probably that other bullshit animated show that nobody ever watched. So I thought that was cute. And then Black Chrysanthemum. We talked about him earlier. He actually rips the arms out of the sockets of the Transdoshan. Am I saying that right? The lizard guy, who they don't like each other. Transdoshans were Transdouche. They were slavers, and Wookiees were slaves. So it's actually good to see a Wookiee do something like that to an organic. I always thought that if we saw arm sockets getting ripped out, it was going to be like a droid or something, because they don't want to show a sentient suffering. But Chewbacca never was going to do it because he's like a good guy. So Black Chrysanthemum, it's okay for a piece of shit guy to do it, right? Right. Boba Fett and Fennec Shand have this little like map droid that flies through Jabba's palace, and this is when Bib Fortuna is still sitting on the throne. And then it comes back and it shows a hologram, and I can't help but think like, okay, that's going to be like in a video game. It's going to be the map droid, like a spy droid, like a drone, but it's tiny. But this is what's weird to me, is that in this episode, Boba Fett is so fucking pissed off at Jabba the Hutt. He feels like Jabba set him up or owes him something or doesn't appreciate his talents and all that. But I am thinking, and especially since he's coming into play 2 episodes from now, that Boba Fett's big fight after he gets, after he's done with the Pike Syndicate, is that he needs to fight Luke Skywalker again and have a rematch, or at least address that, have some sort of like grudge, And honestly, when he finds out that Mando has been hanging around Luke again, or who Grogu was given to, I really think that that's a possible conflict between the two guys, you know. And right now it's like business is business, right? But I keep on thinking, I forget who I was talking to about this. Probably Black Angus or somebody like that. But I keep on thinking like the only way that Book of Boba Fett can really make sense is if season 1 is called something like chapter 12. Because there is so much to Boba Fett as a character, and especially when he was a piece of shit guy, that they could get away with telling piece of shit stories, or stories that take place during his piece of shit former life, by, if you call this like chapter 12, then go back and tell chapter 3, you know. And people are going to argue like, okay, he was a kid during the Clone Wars and we saw him sort of doing that sort of thing. But adult Boba Fett, there is plenty of ground to tread, especially if they're doing things like pulling Black Chrysanthemum out of a comic book. The same comic book that Black Chrysanthemum debuted in, Darth Vader tapped both bounty hunters to perform tasks for him. Black Chrysanthemum went and did some beat up people shit, and Boba Fett was tasked with discovering the identity of the rebel pilot who destroyed the Death Star, which we all know is Luke Skywalker. That would make a really good TV show. But Disney is so intent on cutesifying Boba Fett that I don't believe we're going to see something like that. And it's probably my fault as a fan for wanting The Sopranos in space. I know that the show is never going to be rated R, but Mando, and this is another famous complaint, the Mandalorian acts more like Boba Fett should, and then the Boba Fett is acting more like people would think the Mandalorian should. So that's a finger of scorn. That's Darth Vader. And I like that graphic just because Boba Fett's not acting like Boba Fett. Okay, he's not behaving the way that he should. He's not he's being shown up in his own show because Disney wants to cutesify him. And they want to be able to sell cute little Boba Fett things just like they're selling cute little Mandalorian things and baby Yoda things and stuff like that. Okay. On to the next episode, The Return of the Mandalorian. And this is what was funny to me. I really wanted to talk about this last week, but I was just feeling like shit. I was not feeling good. There was no way that I was going to survive last time. But then when I saw this, I was thinking like, how come the best Book of Boba Fett episode has nothing to do with Boba Fett? And I'm trying to think about the creative rationale behind this. And I'm thinking that this is probably a holdover from when Jon Favreau was trying to put together the Rangers of the New Republic kind of idea. But then Disney dismissed Gina Carano unceremoniously, earning the ire of many, many fans. I think that's part of where the Welcome to the Rebellion motif came from. And I wish Drunk 3PO all the success in the world. He's an old buddy of mine. We streamed a couple times before he was a geek and a gamer. He's doing good. I'm proud of him. He has that natural charisma that I wish I had, but I'm just too much of an asshole to be in a popular realm like that. I don't know. Okay, so The Return of the Mandalorian. The best Book of Boba Fett wasn't even about Bobby Fett. It was about Mando. The reason why these episodes in particular are doing so well is because we are finally dealing with things that Disney seems to want to erase, which is mentions of the Jedi and of the Force and that sort of mystical property, that spirituality, right? And I do have a concern about that, which I will touch on when we start to review the next episode. But there is a reason that Disney wants to step away from that sort of thing. And I think it has a lot to do with marketing, but I think it has a lot more to do with, again, social engineering. If you can conceive of yourself as a Jedi, of somebody who has control of psychic and telekinetic powers, and not only that, uses them in a way that's sort of like Bushido, but sort of like Buddhism, but without the personality cult surrounding it, then you have a greater potential of self-actualizing than the powers that be would prefer that you have. So if the Jedi is something that's dead or done or gone or over, and it's sexier to be a Mandalorian because any idiot can shoot a blaster, right? That's kind of what I'm paraphrasing Ben Kenobi. Any idiot can shoot a blaster, but a lightsaber is an elegant weapon. And it's a sign of you're like a cut above because you're in tune with the Force, the Kyber crystal and all that kind of stuff. That'll come into play here in a few minutes. But yeah, this episode is about the Force, the Jedi and the Mandalore, and especially the what's his name? Tar Vizsla, who retroactively was introduced as the first Mandalorian Jedi. Now, it's funny because if you're into Legends, I wonder how that plays with Revan, because Revan is supposed to have a lot to do with Mandalorian culture. So if he wasn't Mandalorian, he adopted Mandalore. Not sure. That's something that's worth researching. I actually was contemplating doing a video about the Darksaber and some of my theories about why Mando has a hard time with it. But we'll see. Maybe I still will. I don't know. Star Wars is about the Force, and specifically it's about a family. George Lucas said it himself. It's basically a soap opera that's centered around the Skywalker family. It's the rise, the fall, and the redemption of the Chosen One by his son. And then it's about the fallout of that, the destruction of the Jedi and the Sith, and about the efforts of Luke Skywalker to reimagine the Jedi Order. All this other stuff is kind of ancillary. The only reason why people care about the Darksaber is because, well, we know that Mando is going to go and show it to Luke. And people have been wanting to see Luke at his full flower for like close to 40 years. And we're almost there. We're almost there with this. But we'll talk about that more. In this episode, the armorer displays a sort of there's something Zen-like about her. She's clearly very indoctrinated into the cult that she is the head matriarch of, the matriarchy. The Mandalorian matriarchy. And they have different rules about that. If you watch the Clone Wars and you watch Rebels and you know about Death Watch, these are the children of the Watch. Bo-Katan, played by the ever sexy Starbuck, right? Tries to explain some of that to Mando. So he's kind of at odds. Like, this is the only home and only family he's ever known. So, of course, he's interested in pleasing them. But he has been out in the wide world and he has seen things beyond what the Mandalorians have taught him. And indeed, his world is larger because of it. And he has questions that he never had before. One of his encounters, he receives a Beskar spear. And the armorer explains that Beskar is a sacred substance and should never be made into a weapon. They should only be made into defensive things. So he says, okay, we'll turn it into something else. And she goes, well, what should we turn it into? And then it turns out that he wants it to be a gift for Grogu. Now, I'm assuming everybody has seen these episodes, so we're just kind of discussing these things. She made a mesh mail, kind of like, what's it called? Mithril, the fucking Lord of the Rings shit. And he puts it into the cute little fucking running away from home sack and ties it into a little Grogu face. And off he goes. This is something that I thought was funny. So I was talking about the matriarchy, right? The Mandalorian matriarchy. And I couldn't help but notice that the armorer was like whammon-splaining the blade to Din Djarin. Okay. Now we've had so many instances over the past fucking 8 years where they have tried to attack men just for being male and say things like mansplaining. We keep on getting those bullshit commercials, like, you know, the dude sees like a hot chick goes by and he's about to go talk to her, but then the other dude goes, no, man, you know, that's not a cool look. Hey, where you going? You know, as if it's disrespectful just to say hello to somebody. You know, now I understand if he was going to walk up to her and call her sugar tits and honk her ass or something, then yeah, that's a punchable offense. But like just saying hi to somebody, how are you supposed to establish contact or meet new people if you can't even say hi to a female as a guy? You know, so things like that. And you have the armorer here whammon-splaining the dark saber. You know, she's sitting there like, do you know what this is? Have you ever seen one of these before? I'm like, I'm gonna have to be a dork for a sec. I'll turn on my camera because it's easier to do it if you know. It's like, have you ever seen one of these before? Do you know what this is? And she's like, upside down. She's like, for over 10,000 generations, blah 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 blah. It must be one in combat and blah 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 blah. Right? And he's sitting there like on his knees, you know, like all this kind of shit, listening to the story. We get kind of like a Terminator, a T2 kind of thing, like the Future War. Except there's like those K droids, the K2SO, you know, from like Rogue One. And this is the other thing that I'm noticing, is that they're slowly weaving elements of Disney Star Wars into our classic tale. I just heard about a Star Wars comic that came out like this week, where Luke Skywalker is on some planet and he falls into this vat of mushrooms. And of course he has a trip, and in his trip, he has a Force vision where he's speaking to a long dead Jedi. And it turns out that the Jedi he's speaking to is from the High Republic, you know, the series that spawned Geode, the High Republic, that kind of thing. So they're trying, and I've made 2 videos about this so far, where they're trying to introduce bullshit canon into the Star Wars timeline by using these established characters. So you're going to have things like, I don't know, it's almost as if like they want to undermine somebody like Yoda. So they invent Maz Kanata, who's not only female, who's not only a little strange little frog alien, but she's older than Yoda, and she probably knows a little bit more about the legend of the Force or whatever the fuck you want to call it than Yoda does. I bet you $1 when all is said and done, and you know, let's say like the Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett have wrapped, and they're probably getting ready to do some more movies or something like that. They're gonna make Yoda eventually like cocky, or I mean not cocky, but as cocky as a Jedi can be, like inattentive to what's going on with the Force and with the Jedi, and it's gonna be like his fault that the council was susceptible to the whims of the Sith. It's fucking weird. It's really fucking weird. And these are all things that we can glean from how they're using things like the K2 droids and High Republic Jedi and Luke Skywalker's visions in the comics. So there's that aspect of it. So Mando and one of the Vizslas, and I forget the guy's first name. It's like Big fucking Buster Vizsla, you know, Baby Huey Vizsla. In the lore, we learned that the Darksaber was crafted by House Vizsla, so he wants to claim it for himself, but the blade has to be won in combat. So he challenges Mando. Mando, we learn, cannot wield the saber. He cannot wield the saber because there's something about how you fight with a energy weapon that has a kyber crystal in it that requires you to be centered and at least have your will aligned with the intent of the blade. And it sounds like Mando's thoughts are all over the place. He has the blade of the Mandalore, but he is not interested in being Mandalore. He's more interested in checking up on Grogu. So he has this magnificent weapon, but he doesn't have the tenacity to use it yet. You know, he fucks up and cuts himself. It's kind of like if lightsabers were real, and I don't doubt that eventually humans will learn how to build something like this. People are going to accidentally cut themselves all the time. You know, I have a fucking Anakin Skywalker blade right back here. I have an Anakin Skywalker blade that I fuck around with sometimes, and I'll take it out and spin it around and do my they call it the Obi-Annie spin, you know, like when they're fighting and they're both spinning it at the same time in the same way because they're that much in tune with each other as fighters. And I fuck up and I clip the roof and I clip the side of my head and I hit my elbow and I'll hit my knee sometimes. And I'm like, you know, if this was a real lightsaber, I'd be done. I would have killed myself already. You know, so that's another reason why in canon, lightsabers were said to be an elegant weapon and a cut above the rest. So they engage in ritual combat, but neither of them can wield the blade too well. And actually, Mando ends up drawing a traditional bladed implement to decide the fight, which I think is funny. And just as the armorer, the whammon-splaining armorer, is congratulating him, they go through things like, have you ever removed your helmet in front of anybody? And he's like, yeah, actually I have. And she's like, fuck off, you're not one of us anymore. Which is funny because like he was not interested in explaining the reasoning of it. It's just that they broke that particular cultural taboo. So he has the sword of the leader. He doesn't want to be the leader. And he's offended the only family he's ever known. So what does he do? He wants to go out and find Grogu. Now, it's funny. I think culturally, Mandalorians are kind of like the Klingons of Star Wars. They have that sort of Viking Bushido thing about them, where it's about honor. There's a code. They're not above killing. They're not as authoritarian as Klingons are portrayed, but it's just kind of funny to look at the cultural similarities. I don't know if that's purposeful, if that was something that and I think David Filoni is more responsible for this than anything else. I know that Filoni and Favreau, they run their ideas past George Lucas, and he's probably like, oh, that sounds kind of good. I don't think George Lucas is sitting down with them and writing scripts, but, you know, they're probably like, hey, so I think about blah, 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 and X, Y, and Z, and George Lucas is like, okay, well, don't forget that when that happens, this other thing needs to happen too. And they're like, oh, yeah, thanks, George Lucas. But one thing that I thought was kind of fucky, there was a droid towards the end that looks just like one of those bad reboot droids. And again, it's just subtle little things like the K2 droid and this bad robot droid where I'm just like, okay, they are slowly slipping this dick in us. And it's like one of those things, like if they only go in a millimeter at a time, you won't notice that you have a dick in you until like you wake up and you're like, ah. Unless you like dicks in you, then you're probably going to be like, oh, you know. But I was reading this book. It was Mark Lanigan. It was called Sing Backwards and Weep. And there was this story he was telling about waking up and somebody's like morning wood was in his back and the guy was asleep. It's not like the guy was dry humping him or anything, but it's kind of like that. It's like, where did that come from? You know? Random Brad grabbing a beer. That is a good idea. Cheers, folks. Okay. The most recent episode of The Mandalorian happens to be The Mandalorian. Did you see how I like to call the show The Mandalorian now? And this is really like Mandalorian episode 0.1, season 3, episode 0.1, 0.2. I get that they are trying to give the fans a little bit of what they want, because we've been wondering about Luke and about Grogu and all this kind of shit. But I don't know if it was wise to go this far into that story on the Boba Fett show, because like everyone is saying, it's like the show has been hijacked and it's been taken away from the trajectory that was initially set for it. Now I'm not going to complain about the caliber of the show that we're getting, because these 2 episodes are some of the finest televised Star Wars that exist. But if you're going to take, what is this, 4 episodes building up Boba Fett and trying to show the reason for his change of heart and how he's pulling together these disparate elements, you know, we probably as an audience would have been just as happy if in that episode, I think it was episode 3 or episode 4, Fennec Shand was like, you know, we're going to have to put together some muscle. And Boba Fett's like, well, I got a shit ton of money. We can hire whatever muscle we need. And then it cuts to Din Djarin, and he goes, yeah, I can take this job for you, but there's something that I got to do first. And it shows him leaving. And then whatever, Boba Fett has his council of assholes with the Pikes and with the, you know, Transdoshans and whoever the fuck else. And then Boba Fett, Din Djarin steps back in towards the end. And, you know, like Fennec Shand could be like, so where have you been? And he says, whatever. I was gone. I'm back. And then we're kind of like, well, where did he go? What did he do? And then these 2 episodes were given to us in The Mandalorian. But this is one of those things that season 3 of The Mandalorian is not slated to come out until next year. So I don't think that they just wanted to. Really what it is Disney does not want to miss on another marketing opportunity. Grogu is the most popular new Star Wars character that has come out. Everybody was like, oh, Ahsoka's awesome and whatever, blah, blah, blah. They tried and failed with Rey and with Rose Tico. Lord knows they failed with Rose Tico. Finn and all those people, Kylo, Ben, none of those were taken off. But the way, and I got to put this to Dave Filoni, the way that Grogu crept into everybody's heart. I mean, it was perfect. It was perfect. And then Luke Skywalker coming back. The Luke that we wanted to see, not the old cranky, fuck my father's lightsaber Luke. Jedi Master Luke. Ahsoka called him Master Skywalker or Master Luke. Disney's not going to let that go. So they want to get a little bit of that in the show so that we don't forget about them and we don't forget to spend our money on them. But it is odd. It has that effect of this show has been hijacked by other people than who the show is about. Real quick, we got Master of the TDS in the chat saying hello there. What is up? Master, who just had a birthday, by the way. Happy birthday, sir. So yeah, let's get right into this. Right away, one of the first things that we see is before the show started, there was a bunch of speculation last week. It's like, well, now that we saw Mando, we're gonna go see Luke and fucking Baby Yoda. And I was thinking, no, I really don't think we are. But we actually did, for all the reasons that I just explained. I thought it was odd, again, that they're choosing to emphasize this, but I guarantee you it's about marketing. It's about the almighty buck. So Mando flies his wizard starfighter out to Star Wars theory thinks it's Endor. I don't think it's Endor. I actually do believe it's the same temple that we're gonna see that was depicted in I loathe to speak the words. The Force Awakens. You see that Force vision where Luke is crying, Kylo Ben has destroyed the entire fucking thing. It's that same planet. But you can tell from the bamboo and from the way that everything is cinematographied that this is a Filoni episode. I can tell those things because he has specific things that he likes to do as far as how he sets up shots. And one of the things David Filoni likes to do, he likes to draw. And if you ever just look at his sketches, he'll draw during meetings, and you can see a lot of those things and how he likes to establish shots. So Mando lands and we see R2. And for a second I was like, that's not R2. But it turns out to be R2. And I was like, okay, they're really going to do this in this episode. All right. And I'm not like complaining. I'm not like, fuck R2, fuck Luke, fuck Grogu. It's just it takes away from the book of Boba Fett. It's like this isn't Boba Fett's story right here. This is Din Djarin's story. And Din Djarin has his own show, believe it or not. which is another quandary of mine. Quandary? I don't know how to say that word, but Pedro Pascal has conducted himself so poorly in the public sphere that I really, really, really have to separate art from artist. I can enjoy his performance, which we know they can get anybody to be the body of Mando, you know. Pedro Pascal, all he really has to do is record his lines. But the shit he did was way more atrocious than Gina Carano ever did. I saw an article about Whoopi Goldberg getting in trouble for similar things too, and it's just, I don't know. It's like I watch the show, but every time I think about Pedro Pascal as a person, like I narrow my eyes and I'm like, fuck you, buddy. Fuck you. You know? So R2 leads him to where they're constructing the new Jedi temple. And there are these droids running around picking up rocks, and they look like ants. And I thought to myself, it's actually kind of clever to design droids that are modeled after successful life forms in the real world. Now, I know ants probably are not going to be on every planet, but there has to be an analog to ants that would perform similar functions. Just like there's not going to be exactly what we call frogs, but there are frog-like creatures that we see on this planet as well. So I thought that was cool. And then R2, he's being like his fussy self. There's this thing like R2 has like the sweet little chirps, but there's a couple times where he blows raspberries and he goes, except he does it in an electronic way. And every time I hear that sound, I'm like, oh, he's kind of telling this guy to go kick rocks. Because he's like, I'm here to see Grogu. I'm here to see Master Skywalker. Where the fuck are they? And R2's like, and then R2 did that thing where he like goes to sleep. And it pissed me off because once again, that is a callback to The Force Awakens where R2 is just like asleep the entire time. Luke got all butthurt and he ran off and he did whatever, and R2 got depressed and shut down, which is stupid. But if you think about the way J.J. Abrams writes movies, he likes for people to go and have to like hunt and find things and figure something out. And they needed a MacGuffin. So let's go figure out where fucking Luke Skywalker's been. He left a map to himself, but he doesn't want to be found. Oh, all that bullshit. So R2 being asleep just for like fucking 5 minutes in the show. Brings back the memories. But then it turns out that he was kind of fucking with the Mandalorian because Ahsoka's there. And I don't know if I should talk about this now. I'll probably talk about it a little bit later, but she's basically like, look, you came here to see the kid, follow me, look up the hill. That's where they are. So he could see that Grogu is training with Luke. But she goes, listen, this kid is very, very attached to you. And if you go and show your face, he's going to become distracted and he's not going to do his Jedi homework like he should. So give me that little thing. I will make sure he gets it. And why don't you go play somewhere else? Which is funny because Ahsoka royally kicked his ass, or would have royally kicked his ass if that fight had gone on longer. So he's kind of like, all right, I'll go. Just make sure Grogu gets this mithril or whatever the fuck it is. the mithril. So, Mando fucks off. He flies back to Tatooine, I guess. And we see Grogu hanging out with Luke. Now, compared to the season finale of season 2 of Mandalorian, the deep fake technology has just gotten so much better. It is not flawless by any chance. There are a couple of things that I saw that I would have liked for it to be better, and it didn't pull me so hard out of the story because I was like tripping on, Luke's profile or whatever. I actually had to look hard to try to find imperfections, but I was so mesmerized by the story that it was just kind of like a half-second kind of scan. I was like, oh, okay. And I have to say that it's really a triumph for the YouTubers in general, because for once we showed a big mega company that with our limited tools, we can do better than some studio that has millions of dollars in their budget. One of the YouTubers that were doing those really good deep fakes were actually hired by Disney, and that work is now evident. I don't know if Disney hired me, would I actually even do it? Disney probably offered whoever the fuck that was thousands of dollars a year, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, to come and teach their fuckheads how to animate people better. So once again, we got a body double playing Luke, and then they used the deep fake technology to change the guy's face into Luke. Now, I'm sure like the guy that they got playing him doesn't look so unlike Luke, but that they weren't going to pull out Mark Hamill again to do all that stuff, because Mark Hamill's like fucking 60 years old or 70 years old or whatever, and he's going to start doing a new play and all that kind of stuff. What they did is they got Luke Skywalker, his audio track, and just from like creating YouTube videos and doing podcasts and shit like that, you can record audio anywhere. A lot of times for the non-streaming podcast shit that I do, just like the regular videos, I'm sitting on my bed, like talking into my smartphone, and then I get audio technology and cut it up, and then poof, there it is. So this is a real victory for the DIY guys. And this is also a good sign, because unless they specifically need this actor, I don't think we're going to be subjected to Alden Ehrenreich in the next episode, in the season finale of Book of Boba Fett, because we know that Han Solo is going to be in there. We've seen the videos, we've seen the IMDb leaks. So they're probably going to use the same deep fake technology to reform Harrison Ford's face onto some younger actor's body. And it's probably going to be one of those things like it's not going to be Han Solo the entire show. It's probably going to be like, remember in Star Wars Rebels where they wheeled out Darth Vader for the first time? He walked down a Lambda class shuttle, and it was him breathing, and we just saw him for like 5 seconds. It's probably going to be something like that, but we're going to see him, but it's not going to be Alden Ehrenreich. Thank God. I mean, no offense against that guy. He did a job, he was given a script, and 80% through the movie, they decided to change the fucking movie. And that's more Kathleen Kennedy's fault. But it also has to do with how they treated the lore, and the fact that Harrison Ford is Han Solo. I don't fucking care. That's Han Solo. Nobody else has that swagger. It's kind of like if somebody else tried to voice Darth Vader. James Earl Jones is the sound of Darth Vader. There's just no getting around it. Every other actor who has tried, and I've tried to do some Darth Vader voiceover work, has failed miserably, because we're all just trying to do an impression of James Earl Jones, and really, like, he's the only guy that can make that noise, So we see through the deepfake technology, that Luke is a different kind of Grand Master of the Jedi Order. And it's funny, the way that they ended the show versus how I thought he was going to teach during the episode. And I slowly started to realize that right around the time that Ahsoka and Luke talked to each other. But they're sitting there meditating, and Grogu starts to fuck around because he's hungry. He hears the frog, and then he tries to use the Force to bring the frog over. Now, that's what's funny, because I thought I was going to see Luke meditating, but kind of like opening one eye when Grogu wasn't paying attention to him, and then closing his eye again, that kind of thing. But we end up seeing him, he's like, what are you doing? And then like Grogu lets the frog go. And then Luke kind of smiles to himself and then levitates every fucking frog within a 100-meter radius or something like that. So there's like 50 frogs floating in the air, and Grogu's sitting there with that, I don't believe it, that look on his face, that's why you fail. And it was an interesting symmetry because Dagobah, we have like young, petulant, impatient, barely a Padawan Luke, and wise Jedi Master Yoda. So to see the tables turned, and then it's Jedi Master Luke trying to teach a young Yodeling. I think in the encyclopedias they call Yoda's race a tridactyl, something like that. So a young tridactyl. It's interesting. And I think that part of what's difficult to Luke, because they start like they start doing like the remote droid and dudes flipping around and all that kind of stuff, and he gets tired and he takes a nap on a rock, and Luke's sitting there talking to Ahsoka, and he's like, it's hard training this guy, and I don't know if his heart's all the way in it, and blah blah blah. And she has some pretty good advice. She's like, sometimes the student guides the master, and that's true. You learn as you teach. You sort of refine your theory about what you're doing. But I think part of what they're failing is with Grogu is that they're so amazed that another member of this tridactyl species exists, and that they're projecting Master Yoda onto this kid, that they're not really seeing him for who he is. They're seeing who he could be, and they're missing their Grand Master, because Yoda taught all the Jedi. All the Padawans at some point received instruction from Yoda and received the benefit of 900 years of wisdom, at least as far as we know. If the High Republic turns him into a cuck, then, well, but that's a different story. So yeah, I think that that's the root of the failure with Grogu. Luke kind of like takes a walk with him, and he's kind of using the Force to push the kid along, because Grogu has little feet, right? And he starts trying to ask him about like, so, you remember like the planet you're coming from, or do you remember like in the temple, do you remember another being like yourself who spoke kind of backwards, do or do not, there is no try? Do you remember stuff like that? And Grogu kind of like shrugs his shoulders or something. And Luke goes, well, here, let me help you remember. Do I have your permission? And he goes, okay. And we get a scene of Grogu's recollection of Order 66. But all we see is the 501st. And I kept on waiting to see if Grogu remembers Darth Vader, but like pre-cybernetics Darth Vader. Because as soon as I saw lightsabers, you saw like the reflection of lightsabers in the kid's eye. And I saw a blue one light up. And I started thinking like, oh my God, this is the younglings. The younglings are getting taken down. But then it switched to his perspective, and there were two older Jedi who were trying to protect Grogu. And I wonder if it's the same thing. Like, I know that Yoda and Yaddle both sat on the council. So I suppose that this could be a possibility that Grogu is Yoda's child. It's not unheard of. Obviously, Anakin had some kids. And then Mundi is supposed to have kids too. Either him or Plo Koon, one of those two, is supposed to have kids. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. But wherever the tridactyl species come from, I suppose that he could be another foundling, you know. It's just something interesting to think about. Did Grogu encounter Darth Vader? That would be something. You know, honestly, if they want to knock the fucking socks off of us, they should give us a scene where Grogu remembers Darth Vader, and they can get Hayden Christensen in it. Obviously, they know how to de-age people now, so I mean, fuck, possibilities are endless on that. Because we're gonna need in the Mandalorian, obviously, we're gonna need to know how he survived Order 66. How did he avoid detection by Darth Vader? Or how was he spared or saved, and why? You know, these are the things we need to know. So, one of the things that I wondered, and I took notes about all this stuff. One of the things that I wondered is how come, you know, we see Ahsoka and Luke talking, and Luke is going like, the Mandalorian was here, and she was like, uh-huh. And he's like, so what's up? And she's like, oh, you know, he missed the kid, but I told him to fuck off. Luke could sense that the Mandalorian was there, but Luke and Ahsoka could not sense the Darksaber, which I find very strange. The Darksaber is a Jedi artifact. And if you follow the lore, the Darksaber was crafted by Tar Vizsla and was used by him. And then after his death, it was put into the Jedi archives. But then the Mandalorians invaded the Jedi Temple and went and took it. And then turned it into a cultural artifact. So something like that should have been sensed by them. And I'm also thinking the Darksaber operates differently than a typical kyber crystal, because it's not a black blade. I think it's a blade that's kind of like a void blade, like it's sucking in all the ambient light. So it's not giving off light, it's absorbing everything. So it probably works backwards from how a normal lightsaber works. And you would think something like that would put off a unique force signature, because like we hear from Palpatine in the Vader comics, the kyber crystals are alive in some way, right? And we'll come back to Palpatine and Vader in a minute. I thought it was cute that Luke put Grogu in a backpack and ran around and did the flips. That was some good fan service there, some good callbacks to Empire Strikes Back. But it was also illustrative, because I think that Luke was trying to encourage Grogu to feel the Force and to flow with the Force in the same way that Yoda was trying to do so when he raised the X-Wing. Now, here is something that I have not seen anybody else comment on, because this is a martial arts thing. Anybody who has trained traditional Chinese martial arts know that there is a practice called standing post. And that is quite literally, there are probably 7 basic stances that in order to become proficient at Chinese martial arts, you have to practice standing in. And a lot of that stuff involves your thighs being parallel to the floor and your legs quaking and you're sweating and it hurts. And it's said that you're supposed to do it for at least 100 days to make it your own. Now, one thing that I saw that happen on the show is that is what they were doing to Grogu. Luke was like, feel the force. And Grogu did something similar to what Chinese martial artists call a hanging horse. It's not exactly a hanging horse, but it was close enough that I was like, oh, okay, that's standing post. And then while he was standing post, Luke was demonstrating lightsaber form. And that's not so far off the mark from how traditional martial arts are taught. It's like you stand there, you watch. And then once you can stand, I'll show you how to move. So I thought that was pretty cool. Let's see here. Okay. But then there was also this thing where, you know, you get into Star Wars, you get into the Force, you get into Jedi, and that's like all you want from Star Wars. You're like, well, show me more lightsaber shit. Show me more, you know, levitate something or like do this or do that. But they had to take a minute to and reintroduce Cad Bane. Cad Bane was one of the more badass characters from the Clone Wars TV series and from Rebels. And he got his live action debut. So Black Chrysanthemum is a thing. Cad Bane's a thing now. Boba Fett's a thing, obviously. But they're doing things like that. Bo-Katan. These are all people who were introduced previously in animated form and then brought out to the live action stage. But it all played out kind of like a spaghetti Western. And I can't help but think of Firefly. You guys watch Firefly? Of course you watch Firefly. It's a cult TV show, Joss Whedon. Firefly and Serenity. It was good shit. But it was that sort of like pioneer cowboys in the future kind of vibe to it. And they took care at the beginning to show what's his nuts, Timothy Oliphant. I forget his character. They took care to show him being quick on the draw. So that you had those pikes and they're fucking around with spice and he's all like, not in my town. And, you know, they turn around and try to shoot him and he wastes like 3 of them. And he goes, now you take your shit and get the fuck out of here. You know, just so that when Cad Bane does his thing, we could see how much better at it he is than this guy. Now, Cad Bane, it's really funny. The species that he is, I haven't heard them say yet, but it actually reminds me of, it's Legends now, but the Heir to the Empire, all those things. There was a alien species that were assassins that they sent after Leia and Chewie and shit like that when Leia was pregnant. And the way that they describe them in the book is very, very similar to the appearance that Cad Bane has. Not exactly the same, but similar enough that I was kind of like, huh, okay, but that's what they're doing. But I like Cad Bane. He's a good character. He went toe-to-toe with Obi-Wan a couple times. He went toe-to-toe with other bounty hunters. We've seen him in what's that called? The fucking Bad Batch. Which I don't think is Star Wars at its best, but what do you do? But yeah, it was like a spaghetti Western. Okay. Now, I'm going to kind of go out on a limb here and talk a little bit about some savage spirituality. The design of the temple so far that Luke built is reminiscent of an omphalos. Now, that is a Greek term, and it translates to navel of the earth. There was a really famous one at the Oracle of Delphi, where it was supposed to be the center of the earth, where all the ley lines and spiritual energy and all that sort of stuff is supposed to focus or be focused, so that the Oracle at Delphi could do her thing and read the future or whatever the fuck. Luke built one. So that's a little bit of an Easter egg there. I don't know if that was on purpose, if some of the writers know what the fuck that is. I wouldn't put it past Filoni and Favreau to know what that is, but nevertheless, it was awesome to see its inclusion. But then at the very end of the show, we know that Luke is having difficulty with Grogu, because Grogu's attachments to Mando are distracting him from fully committing himself to the Jedi path. Mando actually refers to Grogu as a Mandalorian foundling, and then Ahsoka has to correct him and say, no, he is a Jedi. He's a Jedi Padawan. And are you really here for him, or are you here for yourself? Which is a valid question. And honestly, things like that are things that Mando needs to be able to contemplate within himself. That'll help him with the Darksaber eventually. But I have a feeling that Mando's going to go back and try to ask for some help with the Darksaber stuff. But Luke knows from his own training with Master Yoda that there comes a time when Padawans might question the path that they need to be on. So is he truly committed to the Jedi path? And Luke experienced it himself, like when he had the vision with the dark side cave. He interrupted his training to go and do something else that he thought he needed to do. And I'm thinking that Luke is sensing that in Grogu with his pull towards the Mandalorian. So instead of fighting that or forbidding him to do it, in so many words, he offers Grogu a choice. Now, this is what I thought. This is what I thought was kind of strange about the use of Luke here and the choice he puts down for Grogu. He says, you can choose the gift that the Mandalorian gave you, which is a very fine suit of chainmail made out of Beskar, which is good because it'll, it's good for deflecting blasts and blah, 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 blah. Or, and he goes, you can have this. And we are told that this is Yoda's lightsaber. Okay. Now, I have a couple of thoughts about this because I am a comic book nerd. And in the very same issue where Palpatine is teaching Vader about the Kyber crystals, he says that they are alive in some way. And in order to continue your training, you will need a lightsaber. And the background for what's going on is a Masamita. He's the blue guy with the horns that you always see standing around. He is talking about how the Jedi Purge eliminated the treachery of the Jedi and blah, blah, blah. And we're going to destroy the symbols of the Jedi, which is we captured all of their lightsabers and we're going to throw them in this big fucking bonfire. And every time he throws a lightsaber in the fire, it kind of explodes because the Kyber crystals are alive. And Palpatine says that the only way that a Sith can obtain a red Kyber crystal is by killing and taking one from a Jedi and then making it bleed, which is to corrupt it through the dark side, to teach it pain. And Vader himself remarks that you could have given me any Jedi's lightsaber. including Master Yoda's. And then we see Masamita throw Master Yoda's lightsaber into the bonfire. Okay, so this episode is either retconning that from the comic books, which I don't think that the writers of the show are so concerned with keeping comic book canon continuity. Thank you. As they are shows and movies. But it's also possible that Master Yoda constructed a new lightsaber once he reached Dagobah. And after he passed, I'm sure Luke took his belongings and all that stuff. So that makes the most sense to me if Yoda built a new lightsaber, which is kind of strange. I know it would be similar to Obi-Wan having a lightsaber but never using it because it betrays your presence as a Force user. So that's my way of getting around that, because that's a contradiction in canon, and either they retconned it or Yoda built another lightsaber, which I don't really have a problem with that. I would also think that Yoda would kind of be more similar to Palpatine in that regard, where he would be more concerned about unraveling the mysteries of the Force than he would be about combat. The stuff that Yoda was doing with Qui-Gon Jinn is leagues beyond what the Jedi practiced on the day-to-day, especially with lightsaber training. And let's face it, Yoda at that point would have had 800 years of lightsaber experience easily. So, but there are some big, bad, nasty things on Dagobah that I'm sure a lightsaber would be handy to have. But there you have it. Luke presents him with a choice. He's like, you can have this or that, but you cannot have both. If you take the shit that Mando brought, then you will have chosen the path of the Mandalorian, and best of luck to you, kid, and, that kind of thing. But if you take this lightsaber, I will teach you to be a master Jedi. And then it just kind of like Grogu looks at the shirt and then he looks at the lightsaber, and then that's the end of the episode. It's like, dun, dun, dun. What will he do? Now that's what mystifies me about this sort of like an ultimatum. This is like the gauntlet that Luke is throwing down. He's saying, you can take this or that, but you can't have both. I need you to pick one or the other. And Luke's not going to... It doesn't make sense to me, because you would think that Luke would allow Grogu a token of his identity. Just in the same way that, say a Tusken Raider was a Jedi, which I know that that's nigh on impossible, but there was a Dark Horse comic or something like that. The Tusken Raider kept his helmet. If there was a Mandalorian Jedi, the Mandalorian Jedi kept his helmet, or at least had some sort of a take on it. Right? Now it's different. It's not like Plo Koon, who needs cybernetics to breathe, but I believe that a Jedi would be allowed a representation of his culture, or at least his adopted beliefs, especially Luke's new Jedi Order. But Luke is giving him this decision, like it has to be one or the other. And it's funny to me, like if Grogu ended up choosing the chainmail, then Luke would just be like, all right, see you. But if he chose the lightsaber, there's something in me that believes that Luke would give him both. Like, okay, you chose a lightsaber, good choice. You can have the shirt too. That kind of stuff. Which isn't to say at some point Grogu wouldn't want to leave of his own accord and go and play Mandalorian. But I was actually thinking, before I saw these episodes, and even before the Book of Boba Fett was a thing, I was thinking that Mando was going to wait some years before he goes and visits Grogu again. And Grogu would be older. He'd be like, 60 or 65 or something like that. And he would know how to talk. Except the Grogu that Mando would meet would be a Jedi. So he would not have the same sort of attachments to the Mandalorian that the Mandalorian has to Grogu. But since Grogu is still kind of a baby, they're both having those feelings. I could understand it more from the Mandalorian side because he's kind of losing his culture. The people that raised him is turning his back on him because he took off his helmet. So Grogu is really the only other being that he is close with. And then Grogu came from the Jedi Temple and pretended to be something else during the Empire, but then formed an attachment with Mando as Mando was looking for Luke. So we're in a strange place with this show. At the end of the show, like Luke rejoins the Mandalorian, or excuse me, Boba Fett. See, I want to call the show The Mandalorian, and that's why this is such a bizarre choice for Disney. But he rejoins Boba Fett. He's the hired guy. He goes and high fives Black Chrysanthemum or something, and then Grogu is sitting there going like, "What will I do? Which way do I go, George? Which way do I go?" Right? So it's a trip. It is a trip. All right, you guys, I've been going for about 2 hours, which is 45 minutes typically, longer than I typically go. So I'd like to go ahead and bid you salute for the night. Lift high whatever it is you are imbibing. And one last time, here is to us, what's like us, and not a goddamn thing.